Meg with you and tell you more about growing up with Meg as a best friend. I wanted to thank Leah Richardson, who couldn't be here today, a friend from high school, who wrote some thoughts down that I read out at the service in New Jersey. So I've incorporated some of her recollections into what I have to say today. You knew you had a good best friend when Meg would ride with me in the back of my mom's Volkswagen Rabbit from New Jersey to our summer house in Connecticut, accompanied by a hot, drooling St. Bernard and a golden retriever. Meg was never really a big dog person, but she put up with the dog hairs and the slobber for 3 hours on the Garden State Parkway and the Connecticut Turnpike. Meg really meant a lot to all of her high school friends. She was just such a good person. So clear from the moment you met her and the time that you spent with her. We all admired her so much and tried to follow in her footsteps. She was really dedicated and hardworking on the field hockey field and in the classroom. And it turns out that many of us often tried to be just like her. But she ran so fast we just couldn't keep up. One high school English teacher read out loud from Meg's paper in class. The paper was about a Shakespeare play. And it was really an incredible essay that was written so beautifully with words that some of us didn't even know. She was pretty much good at everything she did, but she also worked really hard at all those things that she did. Meg was our go-to person for new music and bands, and this made her super cool. She always knew about up-and-coming music and made the best mixtapes, which I listened to for years afterwards, and I still even have some lying around. Our education in the 1980s was supplemented by the messages of Billy Bragg and The Clash and U2, and enhanced by concerts with the Violent Femmes and Elvis Costello. I think that most of the guys we hung out with in high school had a crush on her just for her music taste alone. And after high school, I began to refer to Meg as my friend, the male magnet. She just had a spark that drew you to her. We had so many great times together as we grew up together. Somehow, Meg always seemed to be the sensible and wise one. She seemed like an old soul. She didn't need to make all the silly mistakes and do all the juvenile things that we did. But she supported us in those endeavors, drove us around in a wonderful old yellow Jeep Cherokee, and made sure that no one was hurt. Although Meg was an accomplished outdoorswoman, I think many of you that are here today know that, she was also quite the city slicker. Meg knew her way around New York City from a very early age, and never did figure out how she discovered where all the subway stops were to get back and forth between New Jersey and Manhattan, or how she could get from one part of Manhattan to another without the slightest glance at a map. She just knew where things were. She led the way to the stores, the neighborhoods, the parks, and the museums of Manhattan. During overnight trips that we would take in high school into the city, we rode the subway in the middle of the night up and down Manhattan just for the fun of it. Her urban prowess was always something that really impressed me. After graduating from high school in 1986, Meg again seemed to go where no one else had gone. She didn't settle. Instead, she explored and followed her own path. We were so impressed at how she could go to any school, and there were several, try any job, most of which seemed quite interesting after that very brief stint at McDonald's. Meg could go to any foreign country and be fine, continuing to live and learn. I was lucky enough to accompany her on some of the initial journeys to Mexico and Alaska, and even before those, she went to the Soviet Union when it was still the Soviet Union with Kim Davitt, another high school friend who's here today. In Mexico, Meg traveled on her own through the north to meet up with me in Mexico City. We then headed south off the beaten path and lived on a budget of $8 a day. This worked out well since I had a tent, until one group of village dogs decided that my tent was the best place to pee on all day and all night long. The following evening, we couldn't bring ourselves to sleep amid so much urine, so we asked the owner of a restaurant where we had dinner if we could sleep on 2 of his beach chairs. He agreed, and we settled into a hard night's sleep, I'll say. But in the middle of the night, he woke us up and said that we had to pay him for the use of those chairs until dawn. That put us over our budget for that day, but on the whole, whole, we pretty much survived on $8 a day for our budget a couple weeks. I drove to Alaska for the first time one summer with her boyfriend at the time in tow. She'd managed to convince him to drive with the two of us from New Jersey. And although he'd expressed little interest in this adventure, she told me that she thought it would be good for him to make the journey. We barely made it out of the lower 48 as a threesome because I discovered 3 really is a crowd. And let's just say that he was no guide like someone that we know. Meg and I had a challenging but wonderful backpacking foray together in Denali. We went through those initial rites of passage, worrying about bears and bear canisters, and deciphering our topo map. To lighten our packs on this trip, we decided not to carry a camping stove, which is probably the worst culinary decision of the week we could have made. After a hard day backpacking in the tundra, I was resting in the tent and feeling a bit sick, I think from solely subsisting on trail mix for a couple of days, when I heard Meg yell out from atop a hill near our campsite. She said, Liz, you have to come up here. You can see Denali from here. You have to get off your ass and come see it. So see it we did that day, and again a few days later when we rode the park bus to the end of the road. During a later day hike back east in the Gunks in New York State, Meg relayed a crucial piece of information to me after a sudden downpour. As I was feeling quite damp and a bit cold in my wet t-shirt in the woods, Meg said very matter-of-factly, Liz, cotton kills. Well, it took me a few years, but I successfully replaced my cotton garments to transform my hiking wardrobe into a cotton-free, synthetic-filled one. This was just merely one more way that I could be like Meg. I also benefited from Meg's talents as a seamstress. She made shorts, skirts, dresses for me and a few other friends, and even for my mother, that we wore until they were threadbare. Meg also sent clothes to me that she no longer needed or used over the years, and I put them to very good use a second time around. I think that wearing these clothes made me feel closer to Meg, and even better, more like her, because who didn't want to be like Meg? Meg was a real companion, down to earth with an even keel, the best person that you wanted to be around, to hang out with, to grow old with, to have your kids call auntie. She was really there for me through thick and thin. She was also dedicated to making the world a better place, whether through work with Vietnamese families in rural Louisiana, or marches and rallies that we attended together in Washington, D.C. Meg was a mover and a shaker, but in her own laid-back, unobtrusive way. My favorite memory of her long stint in the Peace Corps was a phone call following the initial news of our country assignment to Niger. She called me up and asked me straight out, Liz, where the hell is Niger? I was just thrilled she was going to go spend time in Africa, and later I was in awe of her work there and her mastery of both French and Hausa. Meg lived a long life in a short period of time. She affected people and inspired people, and will continue to do so. She influenced and taught more people through her work and travels than most people get to do in a lifetime. It seems that she didn't realize herself how special she was, because that was Meg. But all of us knew it, and all those that have met her will remember that. I'm going to miss her terribly in ways that I